Okay, yes, all right. Okay.
Okay, I'm ready anytime.
The LBJ Library has been the pioneer in a number of things, I think, a number of activities. One of them is having conferences, like the one we'd had on education that began the whole business, and the one that on civil rights that followed it up. And these had the LBJ stamp. This is what he wanted the library to do. But presidential libraries had not done this sort of thing before. We invited Burt Rhodes, who was then the Archivist of the United States, to make the welcoming address when the Education Symposium was to open. Rhodes, whom I worked for, because all presidential libraries are under the aegis of the Archivist of the United States, he asked me on the phone if I'd write his remarks for him, write some remarks. And I said, sure, and I told the president about it, and he said, good, do that. He said, now put into those remarks that these libraries can do anything. We're not relying on the federal government to pay for this now, but put in there that these libraries can do anything that they want to do that's of this kind of nature, as long as they've got the money to pay for it. They don't have to rely upon the government. So I did, and Rhodes delivered the remarks that way, and that was our charter. And all of the libraries have, at one time or another, acknowledged that that it all began then. I guess the clearest exception to the rule that we have followed of opening everything as quickly as possible, and the fact that the exception to the fact that Johnson wanted everything opened immediately and as soon as possible, were the secret tapes he made of telephone conversations when he was in the White House. These came to me after he died. Mildred Stegall, who had worked for him for many years in a confidential capacity, came to me and said that she had these a collection of these recordings, and that President Johnson had left them in her care with instructions that if they were still in her care when he died, that she should turn them over to me with instructions to me that they be kept closed for a period of 50 years after his death. For a long time we accepted that, but eventually, for a number of reasons, we cut that time short and we started opening the tapes. That's a different story, but anyway, we did. The point that I want to make is that his instructions, assuming that they were his instructions, and I have no reason to doubt it, that his instructions they be kept closed for 50 years, does seem to run counter to his instruction to me that he wanted everything opened with the Barkov. And I've thought about that a lot since we've opened the tapes. I've wondered why. And the only answer, I think, that makes any sense is that he really was concerned about the people that he was talking to. He was disposed to protect their privacy. And he felt that if enough time went by, that privacy issue would be dead, as indeed it would be. And I think that must be the reason. I certainly don't know, but I think that must be the reason why he put that 50-year restriction on it. And at times, I'm aware, as we open these tapes and make them available, I'm aware that we're invading somebody's privacy who's still alive, and sometimes in rather sensitive areas. But I still believe, as I did when we made the decision to open the tapes, that it was the right thing to do, and that history is better served by having them open. But while I'm talking about tapes, I want to make one more point. As I talk about this now, a book on the the second book on the collection of tapes has just come out, edited by Michael Beschloss. And it has generated a lot of feeling that, what was that? Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were saying something.
We'll go back to while I'm talking.
Okay. While I'm talking about...
Get a wider shot.
Okay. Okay.
Someone could cut. Okay.
While I'm talking about the tapes, I want to make another point. As I am taping this now, the second volume of LBJ's telephone tapes has just been published, edited and annotated and collected by Michael Beschloss. That book has generated a lot of discussion because in it the president anguishes and shows his anguish about the war that he has inherited, and he is in the process of making the decision to send troops to Vietnam, but in private, in these conversations, he is talking about how difficult the situation is over there, and that's understating it. The interpretation that has been put on these conversations by a lot of people is that the President of the United States was sending men into battle knowing that they were going to die in a futile cause, that the war could not be won, but he was sending them anyway. And I see that interpretation placed on it, and I feel a sense of almost responsibility to try to correct the record, and it's not my position to do that, but it does bother me because I think that is a total misinterpretation. Everybody who worked for LBJ and survived knew, as that there were times in which he did talk quite extravagantly for a number of reasons, and he would put at times put the worst possible construction on his words, and if conversely. There were times when he would put the best possible construction. He'd talk extravagantly on the other side. I was identified once by him and I was a distinctly junior member of the White House staff, but an ambassador was visiting and introducing me to the ambassador. The president called me his most trusted aide. He did speak in those extravagant terms at times, and so I know perfectly well, and I think everybody who worked for him and was around him knew that he did not ever believe that that the war was hopeless. He wasn't trying to get any kind of military victory, as we always understood that. He was trying to reach an accommodation with the other side, and he believed, as all of his advisors did, with the sole exception of one, that by committing troops, that committing troops to the fight was the only way that would keep South Vietnam from going into communist hands. And he believed, as all of his advisors did at the time, that for South Vietnam to be taken over by the communists would open the door to World War III. Now, we're a long way down the road now, and not very many people credit that, but that was certainly an article of faith at that time. So it really troubles me that misinterpretation is put on those conversations, and I hope that history will sort it out. Okay, that's it.